Next, move over to Europe, where Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban has said that he is working to find a way to circumvent US sanctions on Russian oil companies. This comes after US President Donald Trump, a close ally of the Hungarian leader, recently imposed sanctions on Russia for the first time in his second term, targeting Lukoil and Rosneft, as he tries to pressure Moscow into agreeing a ceasefire in Ukraine. Trump's move drove up oil prices and left questions for Hungary and Slovakia, the biggest buyers of Russian oil in the European Union, after securing exemptions from EU restrictions. Let's listen in to what Orban had to say.
Többet, akár kétszeresét kell fizetnünk az olajért meg a gázért, akkor az embereknek sem tudjuk a mostani rezsicsökkentett áron továbbadni. Tehát aki rezsicsökkentést akar, annak meg kell védeni Magyarországnak azt a jogát, hogy az oroszoktól vásároljunk, vagy az oroszokéval azonos áron, vagy annál olcsóbban vásároljunk olajat és gázt. Ez a meccs nincs lefutva, valóban vannak most szankciók bizonyos orosz olajcégekkel szemben. Én azzal kezdtem a hetet, hogy a MOL vezetőivel többször is egyeztettem. Dolgozunk azon, hogy hogyan lehet ezt a szankciót kivédeni.
We're once again joined by Keith Vaz. Keith, what power does Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban, an obvious outlier in the European Union, along with Slovakia, have when it comes to negotiating a way to circumvent these sanctions that were put on these Russian oil companies by the United States from Moscow?
Well, he's got a lot of goodwill with the Russian leader, and he's got a lot of goodwill with the American administration and Trump in particular. Remember, President Trump chose Hungary as the country that he was going to have his meeting with Vladimir Putin. This was where the summit was going to take place, the summit that never took place. So we have a problem. This is the problem for the Trump administration. This is when the circle becomes the square, because he wants to punish the Russians, and in punishing the Russians, he's going to be punishing the Hungarians and the Slovaks, two countries that have supported Trump and Russia. So it's going to be a real problem for them. India and China, of course, also affected. 80% of the oil that comes from these companies end up with China and India. I think what's going to happen is they will find other ways of getting this Russian oil. They're not going to stop importing immediately. They talk about suspending, etc., etc. But who's going to check where every single barrel of oil is going to go? The reason why America has such a hold is because, of course, people have to deal with dollars. And that's where BRICS was formed, an organization that exists to find different methods of paying. And now, of course, you have either a new currency or the ability of countries to deal directly with each other in their own currency. And BRICS is going to be very successful if it manages to break the yoke of the American dollar. So things have consequences. Every action has a consequence. Whatever we do, it's the first law of physics, and it's also the first law of politics, the second law being make sure you've got your numbers around the table. But he is in a difficult position now because he's hurting. He's going to hurt the very countries that support him, the two most supportive countries in Europe. He's going to alienate India, drive India further insanely mad about what's going on. I think that Prime Minister Modi has been amazing at keeping his cool. And he's going to alienate China. So, it's about America ruling the world, and it's not happening anymore. So this will have consequences.
And Keith, of course, Viktor Orban's Hungary continues to isolate itself within the European Union. How do you see its future in the bloc?
Oh, Hungary's going nowhere. There's no question that Hungary needs EU money. It is not a net provider of EU funds. The countries that we cannot do without in the EU, I say we, Britain is no longer a member of the EU, is we couldn't really do without Britain, Europe, Britain, France, Germany, because they are net contributors. Hungary is not a net contributor to the EU. if Hungary goes out of the EU, it'll have all the problems that we've had in Great Britain. We now have a new party, the Green Party, doing very, very well, that is now pledging to take Britain back into the EU. And that's put them up to second in the polls. Hungarians do not want to come out of the EU. The Prime Minister may be irritated by the way in which they conduct their business. I was irritated when I was the Minister for Europe at the way in which everyone goes around the table, says their little piece, but we all know this has been decided beforehand. So it is a very irritating organisation, very slow, very cumbersome.
Yeah.
So Orban is not that kind of politician. So I would imagine that he will be on the phone to Trump asking him to change his mind.
Yes, Keith Vaz, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to talk to you and have you on the programme. We now move over to the Middle East for our next story, where earlier today